your heart. So let's talk about the ins and outs of your heart. And first, there it is. Zooming in, zooming in. Now, unfortunately, my model has a little bar here, so this should be over a little. But if you, between the first rib and the fifth, that's about where it is. Now, the diaphragm would go underneath here. So let's go ahead and go through a couple things about the heart and about vicarious Raynaud. So when we think about this, what I want to do is go over what's called the pathways, the pathway of blood. So we're going to open this up. Try not to drop it or break it. And I'm going to pause the video a couple times and reposition and show more of this. I'm going to do a separate video just on the models. So that's pretty much where we are. So we have, this is the basic breakdown of what I want to try and cover with this. And the components of the cardiovascular system, the location, I'm going to focus mostly on the pathway and do some other videos on that as well. So let's see. Now this is a drawing that I got from Mr. Schweitzer, and basically we break down that it's the cardiovascular system. Now I'm not going to write on this one, but I'll write later on. Imagine this is the pump and this is the tubes, and that's really what it boils down: pump blood or transport blood. And over this unit for my students, we're going to be covering a couple different chapters. So this is a flow chart we did in class last period, and we'll come back to this. Now I want to actually show this now, and then show a bunch of parts, and then come back to it. This is a really good thing. Again, Mr. Schweitzer came up with this last year, and we took a picture, and we kind of had a flow chart of where we're going. So this is a good way of thinking through it, not rushing through it. So let's go ahead and look at some components of the cardiovascular system: location, the protective connective membranes. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'm going to do that first, and then I want to get into going into the pathways. So when you look here, basically this is just a reminder. Here's that location, my picture, between rib 1 and between 4 and 5, basically. And your diaphragm would go underneath here. Your lungs are here. Your lungs are here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and reposition for a second. And we're back. Okay, so with this, and I'm not going to do a lot of writing on this, but you'll notice this is a review back to your serous membranes. So it's not open to the outside. There's a membrane that surrounds here, which I'm trying to draw. There's another outer membrane that's hard to see. So I have another picture where you can better see this. And in between that space is going to be fluid. So let's go to the next one, and you'll get a better idea here. All right, I'm going to move me out of the way for now. So when you're looking here, what I was trying to draw, there's the membrane, the visceral part, all right? So the visceral pericardium, and then the parietal pericardium. That actually touches this. This is this part. And this is the part that actually touches the wall of the heart, and in between that would be pericardial fluid. Pericarditis is sometimes when people get an inflammation of the pericardial fluid. So this is a basic serous membrane. And so let's go ahead and move down to here. Just a reminder that we actually have histology here. Here is the cardiac muscles. All right, this is referred to as the myocardium. This is the muscle of the cell. This is inside here is where you'd see, this is the chamber. This is where you'd actually see blood flow. So look at they've done a little cross section, pulled this out. So they pulled back the parietal pericardium and had the space, and then they took a chunk out of this. And if you look at the layers, you have visceral pericardium. You're going to have basically, you can just pause the video and see this. You'll see this is that outer layer. Here's that layer, and this would be the fluid in between here. Then the actual myocardium is actual the muscle tissue. So a quick reminder of the muscle tissue. The muscle tissue is it's not like skeletal muscle in that it has striations, but it actually only has one nucleus. Skeletal muscle is polynucleate, and you have these areas called the intercalated disc, which separates these little fused portions here. And so I'm going to go ahead and so that's, you know, we've been talking a couple minutes. I want to talk about the pathway. So that requires this. This is stuff that my students can take a greater look at later. And so I want to jump down into the flow. So that was really a short couple minutes just talking about all this, and most of that you can track down from your textbook. But let's talk about what we expect you to know. We expect you to know about the pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit, right? So let's look at what's going on here. So you follow blood here, all right? You see all these. This doesn't really do justice for it. These are the lungs. So I think we need to know some parts. So let's talk about parts first. By the way, exercise we do in class is we draw a heart and we try and add in all these tubes. I'm not going to do that now, but let's stop here. All right, so you got the vena cava, whether it's the superior or the inferior, and they're going to drain blood into the right atrium. And I'm going to do this, basically this cycle a couple different ways in a couple different pictures. So then you got your left atrium. Okay, so if you're doing pulmonary, you're talking about blood going into the atrium, right atrium. It's going to go through this valve, and we're going to elaborate on the valves in a second. Then blood's going to go up to the lungs. Now, this is where, I should say CO2. CO2 is going to be dropped off, and O2 is going to be picked up, and it's going to go right into the left atrium, down to the left ventricle. You follow this, and now we're at, when it leaves the left ventricle through the aorta, it's now the systemic circuit. The systemic circuit is basically the body. The pulmonary circuit is basically the lungs. Let's underline that. All right, so that's a very short version. What I want to do is recap all of this and start bringing in the parts, the landmarks that you're expected to know. Now, what are the landmarks? This is where my students need to know that they've got to study and be able to look at the external structure of the heart. They've got to look at a coronal section or a frontal section where we are actually looking inside each one of these chambers. And this is where we're going to review this several times. We're going to actually watch. You know, we're going to say, all right, whoa, something's coming in here, something's coming in here. That's right. This is the, let's find it, right atrium. Okay. If we're doing the pulmonary circuit, well, what happened? It's going to go down into the right ventricle. Now, I got to talk about these valves in a second. Then, blood's going out this way. If you little dotted line behind, right? The pulmonary artery to, there's a lung there, there's a lung there. Actually, let's draw in a big lung. Let's draw in a big lung. Looks like anything else. All right, now that blood is going to be returning. Now skip this chamber. See these two tubes? They dump in here. On the models, you'll see that you'll see the two holes here. There's a hole here and a hole here for the pulmonary veins to dump in. And pulmonary veins, again, coming from the lungs. Then they're going to go down this valve. And now watch what happens. I'm going to change colors just for a second. So this is oxygenated blood. There's a valve there, and I'm going to do this again and then talk about the valves. And then there's the blood. Blood's going there, there, and other pictures show the blood going down in that direction. All right, so let's look at this from the standpoint of the chambers and the valves and the vessels. The chambers, the valves, and the vessels. The pump and the tubes coming off them, the tubes coming back to them. And so let's look here for a second. All right, so now here's the superior vena cava. This is bringing blood down. The inferior is bringing blood. There we go. All right, so we have two chambers on the top that both are called atrium, or atria would be plural. Now this blood again is coming from pulmonary. You should associate with the lungs. So this is blood coming here, here. What you can't see is there's pulmonary veins dumping into here, like you saw in the last picture. All right, so these valves, let's talk about these. All right, I have a picture here that I want you to see. This is a cartoon picture, and then this is another picture. I'm going to go back to here. Let me just clear the ink, and then we're going to start again. All right. So, first you got blood is going to be draining here, and this is the right atrium. This is a valve that's going to open. So we have two valves. We have the atrioventricular valve, and we also have the atrioventricular valve on this side. What does that mean? Atrium and ventricular, it's a valve between these. It's a valve that separates the atrium from the ventricle. Okay? And now the blood that leaves the heart leaves through, leaves the right ventricle, and also leaves the left ventricle. But the right ventricle goes, if you follow my mouse here, right here, where you can see where this is another type of valve. This is the pulmonary valve. Now, we also call it the semilunar valve. And I'm going to write SLV over. I'm not going to write here, but I'm going to write on the next picture. So let's see what's going on here. So this valve opens. Now these would shut. These would shut. This valve is going to shut. This valve is going to shut. The blood's going to go there through the pulmonary valve. The pulmonary is semilunar valve. And then let's find the aortic valve. All right, now, so the blood went from the atria down here. If you look, you can follow here, goes underneath. There's a valve there that you'll see. And I'll do this another video to show the valves with models. All right, so I think we're kind of covering this, but I think we want to dig in deeper and see the whole pulmonary and systemic circuit and rehash these different valves. So I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second and reposition the camera so I can better show you that. So now we're looking at a heart model. Now I'm going to do a more elaborate video where I go through all of these. But one of the things I wanted to point out was the pulmonary, the veins here. These two and these two, let's flip it around. Look at my finger. They're right here. Okay. And then so this would be the right and this would be the left. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint and do a little writing on it. So this is a good exercise that we're going to do in class. And let's look. All right, so number one. Right, number one. What's going in number one? This is the vena cava. Vena cava. And how do I know the difference? I'm going to try S for superior and I for inferior. So this blood is draining into the right atrium. Okay. Now while that's going on, so let's look over here. And I'm going to go ahead and make that change. I'm going to do some ink color and change just so we can see. So now this blood is coming from the lung. Here's blood coming from the lungs, right? And it's draining in here to your left atrium. Okay, so let's pause for a second and think about what's going on here. So that would make this a ventricle, a right ventricle. And I would make this a left ventricle. What I want to do now is talk about the valves that are connecting these. So, okay, so look between 1 and 2, that's a valve. That is a atrioventricular valve. And this one is actually called the tricuspid. Okay, now let's look at the valve between 3 and 4, if you see here. Okay, this is also an atrioventricular valve. but this is called the mitral valve. That mitral valve also is called the bicuspid. Okay, so now let's trace our pathway here. We've got the blood that's coming in here, the blood that is coming back from the lungs, so that's your pulmonary circuit. I'm going to just make this purple so you can see this a little bit. So, all right, so let's look at this. So the blood that was coming in here, all right, drains. It's going to go through this valve, the atrioventricular valve. Now, there's your blood, and it's going to go up through here. And this right here, we let's just follow the pathway of the blood. This is the blood going to the lungs. This is the pulmonary arteries. I'll just write PA for pulmonary arteries. So blood is going to be deoxygenated when it leaves, and it's going to be oxygenated when it comes back. So let's write some carbon dioxide here. Let's write some carbon dioxide here, because that's what it wants to get rid of. Now I'm going to go ahead and change back to red. Okay, so let's write O2 here. Let's write O2 here. O2 is coming back to your left atrium. The blood's going to drain down, and then it's going to go up through here. I'm going to circle that, and that circle is another valve. And I didn't miss the valve over here, okay? This one right here, so I'll just circle them. So they're both called semilunar valves. This is a semilunar valve. Okay, now, how do I know the difference? The one that is going from the ventricle to the lungs is called a pulmonary semilunar valve. But then this one right here, and just let me erase something real quickly. This is referred to as the aortic semilunar valve. So if you follow it, this valve opens, and this is where the blood is going to go to the body. And let's not forget down there, the blood's going to drain down. It's actually not drain. Draining is veins coming back to the heart. So this is going to be pumped there. It's going to be pumped here. This is your aorta, and this is the beginning of your blood vessels go to the head. And then, if you want to be technical, if we were to draw in a diaphragm, this would actually be this down here would be the, I'm going to write AA for abdominal aorta. Okay, so that pretty much stops our video on the heart and some basic functions from the micro aspect of it to the tissue like the myocardium to flow through the heart. And I'm going to do another video that actually elaborates and shows all the chambers here.